Okay, so I'm just going to hit record and then start. So welcome to Organizing Your Life. And today we'll be talking about strategies for living your best life. Okay, so let's reflect on some of these questions and see if you say yes to any of them. So the first one is, I can never find anything. I'm just kind of thinking about that. Or the next one is, why is there never enough time in the day to do everything I need to do? I feel overwhelmed all the time. I'm always late because I can never find the clothes I want to wear. My house does not bring me joy. Or I get myself or other people stressed out because I always seem to forget where I put things, times when things are happening, or what I'm supposed to be doing. So maybe one or two of those are like, yes, that's so me. Or maybe all of them are like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess. I definitely need help on organization. And so you're not alone if you've answered one of these questions that seems most like you, or are most of them. So we're going to talk about a lot of different techniques today, and we'll see if it some of these tips and techniques are something that you want to try. So we do know that good organizational skills are really linked to success in everything that we do. And oftentimes we think that we're born with it or not, and actually it's a learned skill. So organizational skills allow you to work the most efficiently and effectively at anything that you do. And it can actually reduce stress that can hinder your achievement. And oftentimes, we'll talk a little bit about this, but it's so easy to procrastinate, and we're not really procrastinating the task itself. We're more procrastinating the mentality of the pain that oftentimes is associated with that task. And oftentimes once we just get started, we kind of flow into it, and it's easy, but it's just that getting started that tends to be the hardest part. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Organizational skills will also help you reduce the stress that hinder your achievement, and then buy you some time and energy to reach your true potential in anything that you decide to do. And they also allow your true talents and abilities to shine. And then also helping you prevent chaos and disorder in not only time and energy and house and work, and fill in the blank with everything. So just kind of thinking of what are those skills that are really working well for me right now, and how can I kind of fine tune those that aren't really working well, and what how can we kind of make some small changes in those that aren't working very well to really make a big difference as time goes on. And so we know that poor organizational skills can cause employees, cause us as anybody to confuse dates, mix up assignments, miss deadlines, and even miss appointments. Or I know sometimes, especially when I'm working from home, I'm like, what day is it? What month is it? I think it's sometime in the middle of February, right? And so definitely having a calendar on hand where I'm crossing out the day can definitely kind of put that pen to paper and have me physically do something to reconnect to what day it is. Poor organizational skills can also decrease your productivity. So either you're searching for something that is needed daily, or have you ever searched for the same thing several times a day, almost every day? Like, has that ever happened to you? Where it's always that same thing. You never put it back where it belongs. And where is that again? Where did I put that down? And so, that's definitely something to think about. And, one of the best tips for that is to say, okay, let's say it's the keys to my car, to like literally say, all right, key, I'm going to put you down right here. So you put yourself in that moment, and you talk to yourself, and you give yourself a mental note and a mental break. And even saying it out loud can really help. So then you're not kind of doing things out of habit where you accidentally put something down um, and then walk away from it, because we're always constantly multitasking, and our brains just cannot multitask. Our brains are only focused on one thing at a time, and then it's segmented into the next thing and the next thing. So it feels like we're multitasking, but our brain can't do that. It's only focused on one thing at a time. If you've ever watched the news while reading a book, um, your brain can't do both. Your brain will focus on, either listening to the news for a second, and then you won't remember what you read in that sentence, or you'll be focused on that reading, and then you'll miss whatever was said on the TV. And so poor organizational skills will also influence your ability to manage time, prioritize, complete projects and day-to-day activities. And then it also leads to poor health. So increasing stress, more anxious, even tension headaches as things start building up, and we don't have a plan behind things, so it increases our tension, and then backaches because how we're holding our body. And we tend to hold our stress in the back, especially when it comes to organization, because things just kind of keep piling up and piling up. So I'm going to send you these 2 quizzes. They're really great. I just love them. It will give you a snapshot at the end. Otherwise, you can purchase the full report. But I didn't need the full report. It was just kind of a quick snapshot, which is all I needed. But it's a really good thing to just be around personal and career. So I'll send these to you, Anne, and then you can forward these on. But just something to kind of see where you fall in organization. So let's go through some myths and some facts. So the myth is organizing is the same as being neat. And that is really not true. So it's not about how the space looks, but how it functions. So even when we were doing the intros where people were just saying kind of what works for them and what doesn't, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is put away. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything is out. Sometimes putting things away in the files is really hard for people, and that was even mentioned before. So it's kind of like an organized chaos, but in a way that works for you, and that's okay. I mean, I wouldn't even consider that chaos. I would consider that an organizational skill. You make it work for you, and it's functional, and you know where everything is, and it works. So the second myth is being organized is a talent that you're either born with or you're not. And no, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's a learnable skill. It takes some time, it takes some practice, and it takes just a lot of self-compassion and saying, okay, oh, that didn't work. So that's just one less thing to try next time. And I'm gonna try this different skill this time. And then the last myth is organizing is about throwing things away. And so, definitely sometimes it is. But then it's also about keeping everything that you want and still getting organized with those things that you want. And so when you're like decluttering and going through your space and really looking at those, what are the things that I really want to keep? You can keep those and stay organized. So there's a lot of roadblocks to good organization. So as I'm going through these, just kind of reflect on these as we talk through them. So when you're going throughout your house or your school, your work, your vehicle, are there homeless items and are tasks that really don't have a time or space or place? So that's definitely a roadblock. And we'll talk about that. And then inconvenient storage. So kind of looking at how are you storing things, even like holiday decorations, how are you storing papers that you want to keep? Do you have a filing system? What is your storage like? Or overly complex organizational system. It's so complex that I file something away and I spend so much time looking for it, and I just shouldn't have even filed it away. Now I can't find it. having more stuff than space available. So it's definitely something to think about, and we'll talk about that. The out of sight, out of mind mindset, um, is even though my storage space down in my basement is is just kind of where I kind of put things and then walk away from it. I don't even have to think about it. But then when I do need something, do I go down there and I'm not able to find anything and 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 need to then rummage through a lot of things. So that's just something to think about. Is that true for you? Fear of losing your individuality. When I work with people who have more like a hoarding tendency, I see that this can definitely be part of that, the psychological warfare of needing to hold on to everything and continually to buy more and to kind of try to figure out who you are and kind of building those barriers around of stuff around to kind of protect the emotional aspect of different things as it relates to hoarding. And then the belief that organization is boring. I don't have time and it's no fun, and it can definitely be a lot more fun than we give it credit to. And then unclear goals and priorities. So that can be a roadblock because we're not even thinking about it, or we're thinking about it in well, this is what I was told and this is how it's supposed to be done, and that's not how I would do it. So kind of really looking at your values and being very uh, self-compassionate, and then looking at what goals would best suit you as an individual to be able to organize what you need to organize, and then setting those priorities. Like sometimes we can say, well, I am going to organize this whole house this weekend, and it's going to be top to bottom, and throw everything away and all of that. And by the end of the weekend, oof, thought of too much, and nothing got done because the goal was too big. So definitely prioritizing what is the one thing that you can do in a short amount of time. And so we'll talk about that. Okay, so what in your life needs to be organized? And some you already mentioned a lot of different things. So is it space or physical possession that need to be organized? Is it tasks such as work assignments, home assignments, housework, self-care, etc.? And self-care is on there because sometimes we are so chaotic and we're not organized at all, and things are just a little maddening that we don't even take the time for self-care. So definitely that is part of that organizational spectrum of our own self-care needs to be prioritized in our day. And then your time. Does time need to be organized? So we'll kind of talk about these things today. All right, so here is a 3-step plan to all organizational tasks. It's analyze, strategize, and attack. So get your thinking cap on and we'll think about these things. So the first step is to analyze. And this is the most important part. And oftentimes we don't even go here, but we need to kind of take a step back and really figure this out. So we need to really identify what's working in our life and what isn't. And there's no judgment. There's never any judgment. We want to kind of get away from that judgment because it's all about learning. It's learning about ourselves and becoming our own teacher and our own student of our own life. And that is so very important, and just to have that awareness, and that's the only way we can kind of move forward and learn about what's working and what's not working. And then identify what's essential with the space, assignment, task, time, really what's the what's and the who's and the how's and everything. What's essential about it? Like if it's your workspace at home, what is the most essential part of that? If it's an assignment or even a task. And then identify what the payoff will be if you get organized for that one area. Really put that into words. It's so very important. We don't think about that often enough. And then sometimes there can be an emotional aspect of why you're not doing something. And that's fundamental to really really think about that and really come to terms with that, because that can help you do the next step of what needs to be done. How can you best self-care for yourself and have a lot of self-compassion in, in that organizational next step. Because if we do things without looking at our emotion, then it can kind of backfire on us. So we need to make sure that we take all of these and analyze these things to take everything into consideration. And then identify what is the specific problems. Are there roadblocks to this organizational task or assignment or space or time? Um, and we'll kind of discuss that. So are there any specific problems to doing this? And so we want to analyze those specific problems to make sure that we can so we can best take care of ourselves. Okay, so the step 2 is strategize. So we can do 2 important strategies. We can do the kindergarten method or the kindergarten model. And what that is, if you've ever been, anybody here a kindergarten teacher? No, you can walk into a kindergarten room, there's definitely these clear zones, clear areas. This is definitely for reading, this is for science, this is for playtime, this is for learning, and well, it's all for learning, or this is for sitting down and listening to kind of a lecture time. So kind of setting those clear areas or zones, and what that means, what that can mean is really break down those tasks. And so there's no confusion. You really want to kind of think of even in time, like this is my self-care time, this is my work time, this is my home time. Everything can be broken down. If we don't do this, I mean, thinking about even time, your time will be filled with things that aren't as important to you. So even thinking in terms of what in my life is the most important to me, and what do I want to spend my time doing? So making sure that you're breaking those down and even writing them down, like self-care time, work time, home time, family time, and what that means. And then you can estimate the time it'll take to do the organization. So that's so very, very important. So if you don't have time to complete the task, when will you finish? So if you are wanting to clean out your closets this weekend, kind of estimate, this is going to take me all weekend, or this is going to take me all Saturday morning. And if I'm not going to be able to finish it, then when? Is it next weekend? Is it Sunday? Is it Monday when I get home from work, or when work is done? Definitely kind of thinking in terms of how long it's going to take, and if you don't finish, when. Because sometimes if we don't plan that, we'll start something and not finish it, and then it just sits like that for a year or whatever. So it's very important to kind of set those clear zones, break it down, and then estimate the time. And then the third thing is attack it. So it definitely depends on which problem you're attacking, and it could be, like I mentioned before, your space, physical possessions, task or assignment, or organizing your time. And so if it's a task, it can relate to personal or family event, work project, fill in the blank. And if it's organizing your time, how much time are you thinking about organizing? Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a month? Really thinking about what's that next step as you're attacking that. The next thing. So let's go into that attacking method. So let's attack a space. So there's a 5-step space formula, and that's an acronym. And the S stands for sort. So you want to go through each possession and use the 4-container method, and that's trash, give away, sell, storage, or put away. So you want to have like 4 boxes right there. Some people will even use a fifth box, and kind of thinking in terms of what would go into that fifth box if it's not trash, giveaway, storage, or put away. So, I mean, everybody's different, so you don't have to share that or anything, but, or maybe those are the only four that you need. So kind of thinking um, of those four containers that you can use when you're going through a space. The P stands for purge, so getting rid of all the duplicates, excess, undesirable or irrelevant. So really thinking of these things as you're going through a space. And then assign a home. Decide where these items that you keep will live. So, that's very important. So everything has a space and everything in its space. And then containerize. So use containers to keep items separate, and it doesn't have to be big, huge containers. It can, whatever fits, and we'll talk about that. And then equalize. So maintain and update your system over time. Is it working? So we're always, using that awareness of, is this working? And then, so once you go through this, you kind of have everything done, you thrown stuff away, you given stuff away or sold it, you put stuff in storage, you put everything where it belongs, then you kind of use that space for a while, and is it working for you? And if it is, great. If it isn't, then we kind of can either start over, or we can analyze what is working and what isn't, and kind of start over with that. So that's space. So attacking time, that's another big one. So we use the WADE formula, so that acronym. So the W is to write it down. Write down all activities in your planner. And, we've kind of already talked a little bit about what if you have a calendar for family, and a calendar for work, and a calendar for this, and a calendar for that. So how can you combine all of those calendars on one? So is there a way? Sometimes you can't. Like, I don't want to have all my personal stuff on my work calendar, but I can put private on it, and no one else will see it. So sometimes that does work, but really finding a planner method that works for you is key. And there's a lot of apps that you can use. So I would recommend kind of going in and just researching those a little bit to see what can work for you. And then add it up. So estimate how long each task will take. So if you attack your time in one day, kind of add it up. Like, I want to do some self-care time. So, putting that in your day, and then say, I want to do 20 minutes of something, so it's all in there, along with all the rest of your tasks for the day. And then decide when. So designate when each task will be completed. So this is, we're always saying you need to put things in your schedule. Like, if you want to exercise, put it in your schedule, just like you would if you have a doctor's appointment, or you go to work, so your work is on your schedule. So anything else that you want to do, designate a time to do that, because eventually, as you're going through and you're getting into better habits, the next thing on your calendar, yep, you don't even have to think about it. You just automatically do it. And then execute your plan. So put your plan into action, kind of thinking about it. And the same thing, is it assessing it at the end of the week? Is this working for me? And if it is, great. If it isn't, putting together something else, or trying some new tasks. Always a good thing. So here's some challenges for time. And I hear this all the time. There's just not enough time in the day. And so consider these 4D strategies. The first one is delete the task. Really decide based on your priorities what you won't be able to accomplish in that day or week. Delete it or delay it. So instead of taking it off, you maybe delay it for the next week. If you determine that it's still important to be done, but you can delay it till a later time. And I kind of talked a little bit about procrastination here. Just kind of taking the time to think about it. Why am I delaying this? If it's something that you've delayed and you've delayed and you've delayed, what about it? Maybe it's something emotional that kind of triggers you on why you don't want to do it. So if it's something that's still important, it's that's definitely something to think about. And we'll talk about procrastination. So diminish the task. So try to determine the most effective way to get the task done without taking the maximum amount of time. So that might be something to kind of think about. What, could there be a shortcut in finishing that task? And then delegate. I have a hard time delegating, but I know there are oftentimes people who want to help. So delegating, see if you can find a helper or someone else that can complete the task for you, or just, getting help. Okay, so we kind of talked about this a little bit. So beware of the 2 Ps, procrastination and perfectionism. So the first one is procrastination. So some people do say, I work best under pressure. I'm more creative and I get my best work done. And sometimes that can cause more stress, or sometimes you're not doing your best work because you're working against the clock. And if you started a little bit earlier or broke down the task into, several different time frames, you might have had better outcomes, or felt really good about that task. And perfectionism. So none of us are perfect. It doesn't exist. Nobody's perfect, and nobody has ever been perfect. And nobody expects your work to be perfect either. So delaying a project or not handling something until it's perfect in your eyes typically will lead to stress, frustration, or even activities are piling up over time. And so kind of thinking about that, does that resonate with you? It's like, if I can't get this project done in its whole entirety, then I'm not even going to do it. And then the next thing comes up, say the same thing. And then the next thing comes up, say it. And all of a sudden, the end of the year, you have all these projects to do because you didn't want to start them because you didn't think you would be able to finish them. So that's just really something to think about. All right. So do you need to spend some time or some money to be organized? And so really looking at what needs to be organized, and if you need to spend some money on doing it. So drawer spacers, containers, sticky notes, labels, totes, calendar, planner, folders, or oftentimes what happens is people will go out and buy stuff and then start organizing, and then they already found a bunch of containers or files or things that they already had in at home. So that's kind of why starting with that 4 container method is even better than looking at a space and going, okay, well, I need this, this, and that before you even get started. Because once you kind of gotten rid of everything that you don't need, then you can kind of reanalyze and go, okay, well, I'm definitely going to need some storage totes or small drawer spacers or something like that. So kind of and then you can repurpose other things that you already have. Okay, so we're on to the self-care. And so I really like to use this acronym of SELF. And we want to really look at a lot of different things as it relates to our younger self versus our older self. So when we were younger, when we had less responsibilities, we were able to spend more time doing self-care. Like, for instance, if we wanted to sleep in, we were able to. If we wanted to exercise, we were definitely able to spend an hour doing that. And then we'll oftentimes look at it ourselves now and say, well, it's not even worth it if I don't get an hour in, because I used to be able to do that and now I can't. So we're looking at stop comparing that time, because times have changed. We have more responsibilities. So as it relates to sleep is medicine. So when we get enough sleep, we're more effective, we're more patient. It's brain health and it's body health. So making sure we're getting enough sleep. And then that E stands for exercise. It gives us more confidence. We get the feel good endorphins. It helps our body be fit and strong. It's brain and whole body health. So very important to kind of get this, the sleep in and the exercise. And even if it's 10 minutes of exercise, I'm definitely good. Even if, while you're sitting here, kind of taking a deep breath, shoulders come up and back, and you're holding your abs in a little tight and working on your posture. That's a really good full body exercise to do. L is for love and significant others and friends. So remembering to cultivate that adult relationship with humor. And what happens is when we do cultivate these relationships, we kind of bring back that humor in our life because we're with people who are that we're very comfortable with and confident with, and then that kind of brings out the fun and the humor in our life. And then it also brings perspective because we're relating with other people and we're helping each other out, and if something bad happens in their life, then we take the perspective of like, oh, let me help you, and kind of get the perspective that, oh, okay, things aren't as bad as I'm thinking they are. And then friendship also gives you a mental health break and your own nurturance. And then F is for fun, so you can't take that out of the equation. So really making sure that you schedule in the time for a hobby, pure relaxation, what really makes you feel like your unique self. And then when we do find that hobby and that, those things that really bring us joy, then we feel like ourselves. We feel unique, and we're able to relate to others who have those same hobbies, and then that brings in more significant others and friends. So kind of thinking of that self-care acronym. So other tips to try. So there is a book called Finding Joy, and that's by that Marie Kondo. She's a Japanese organizational consultant, and she has a book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And so basically what the book says is, first you pick up everything that you own one at a time, and you ask yourself if it sparks joy, and if it doesn't, thank it for its service and then get rid of it. And so when that whole thing is done, that can be kind of hard to do sometimes, but when everything that once your only most joy-giving belongings remain, put everything in place where it's visible, accessible, and easy to grab. And so that's one way to do it. Another way is a box experiment. And so what you want to do is kind of put things in a box that you don't really use anymore, but you're like, oh, I don't want to get rid of this. You tape it up, you date it, you don't open. So let's say the date is in 6 months or a year, you have the date on it. Once that comes in, do not open the box. Don't open the box. Just donate the box. You haven't used it in a year, you don't need it. Don't open it. Just donate the box. And then another one is a hanger experiment. Has anyone ever done this? Where you literally go into your closet and instead of putting the hanger on the pole like this, you flip it around and put it like this, so the mouth of the hanger is facing outwards. And then you start using your clothes like you normally would. And then every single time you wear something, you put it back in, and like the normal way you put in. And at the end of 6 months or after the end of the year, you look at how many things in your closet are the mouth of the hanger is still facing you. Then you get rid of all of those clothes. You donate all of them. And I can tell you, you will probably only have about 20% of your closet left. So that's just something to think about. So that's a hanger experiment. You can do it for 6 months. Sometimes when we live in the Minnesota in the winter, we might want to go out a little bit further than that 6 months, because we have to wear different types of clothes depending on the season. And then try, like I had mentioned earlier, trying to use just one calendar, weekly powwow with family members to kind of plan out the week and really kind of sit down and say, hey, what do we want to do? Let's make sure that we have some family time, and maybe every single day, one person chooses 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour of planning a family activity in that. So just something to think about. And then you have all your activities and your dinners and your appointments and everything else that you need to do on that one calendar. And then the last one really is, if you are having a lot of trouble with throwing things away, or getting rid of things, and you're feeling like you're kind of building those walls around yourself with stuff, that's that's not uncommon, especially because you know, there is a lot of trauma and there's a lot of things that we don't even realize that we're doing. But once we kind of start opening up and realizing about this, you might need some help, and that's okay. So reach out. Counseling, therapy, talk about these things. You're not alone in it, and because it is hard to, you know, get rid of things and throw things away, especially when they do have an emotional connection. Um, I know sometimes, especially if you haven't used it for a long time. I knew a lady who she just took pictures of, she had picture album. She took a picture of it and then put it in her album so she could come back and look at it whenever she wanted. And instead of, you know, she had this big box of stuff and then it went down to a small photo album. So she still had it, but it was in the picture form. So the summary. Organizational skills are not genetic. So if your mother or father was very organized, it doesn't mean that you will be, or vice versa. So we all have to work at being organized throughout our life. And as things change, um, our needs might change. So what used to work for us might not work for us anymore. And that's okay. We can kind of be aware of that and reassess and make it work. So the time it takes to get organized is definitely well worth it. It saves you both time and stress in the long run, and it's definitely worth kind of taking that time out and thinking about it. And oftentimes when we do kind of a review of our day, how much was your day doing something that really wasn't important to you or that you didn't need to do? Like, you know, did you watch 2 hours of TV or 3 hours of TV or 4 hours? You know, sometimes in our American lives, we can kind of get sucked in down that rabbit hole. So kind of thinking in terms of um, what does your day consist of, and then putting in those things that you really value into that time. And then, but it really, if you can take the time to become organized, it's really beneficial. And there's no one size fits all. Truly has to complement your interest, your tendencies, your likes, your dislikes, and what works for you and how it functions for you. And it definitely requires maintenance for it to be effective. So you're never really done organizing your space, your time, your work, you know, it's good to kind of take things in. And even if you have a lot of things, even, you know, so you went through it, you organized it, you felt kind of, you know, this box I'm really emotionally attached to, and I just want to keep it. That's okay. Maybe go through it in 6 months or in a year and look at it again and go, oh, you know what, I'm okay with getting rid of it this time. And so we need to remember that we're always changing, and our feelings and our emotions are always changing. So it's okay to save something if you're emotionally attached to it, and it's okay to get rid of things as well. So we're never really done organizing. So are there any questions or anything that you really wanted to try or get more, or do you want to talk through anything?